Where do we go from here? Now, the Dolphins have been the team that has been most linked to Dalvin Cook. There have been reports that the Dolphins would be interested if he's released. They weren't going to trade for his salary, but they're interested if released. They've got a great stable of running backs. They've got great skill position players. Is there a spot for Cook? Someone asked Mike McDaniel, the coach of the Dolphins, about Cook yesterday. Have a listen to the question and the answer from one of our favorite coaches in the NFL.
Veteran running back from the Minnesota Vikings who is from Miami is supposedly going to be released today or has been released. You have said that this team is always seeking to upgrade. Does that apply at running back right now?
March 3rd, 1983. That day I was born, right? Now we take a closer look at that date. And that, in fact, was not yesterday. Okay, so people that are rumored to be tall, short, people that are rumored to be, that's, you're not going to get this guy. I'm year 2, okay? So that what I am excited about is talking about the most important thing, which is the 3rd day of veteran minicamp. And we've got a lot of guys that are good players that have an opportunity to get better. Answer your question?
Yes, not to my satisfaction, but yes.
I mean, unless you're trying to run me out of town, you know?
That was the longest wind-up I ever heard to the old I wasn't born yesterday. I think the longest wind-up before that I've ever heard was I was born at night, but not last night. So I loved it because initially I didn't know where he was going and nobody else did. So great job by Mike McDaniel. And there was kind of a subtle condescension, not in your face, Bill Belichick, eye roll and grumpy harumphing. But, the bottom line is this. If you cover the NFL for a living, probably a good idea to understand the basic realities of the tampering rules. Mike McDaniel can't say anything about Dalvin Cook until he is officially released. He's under contract with the Vikings. Anything he says is a potential violation of the tampering rules. And his response kind of implied that the reporter knew. I would wager that the reporter just didn't know that he was dropping the breadcrumbs on a trail that was going to lead McDaniel to a potential tampering violation. But it's just a reminder to anyone out there who covers the NFL, no matter how long or short you've been doing it, one of the basic rules to understand when you're going to ask a coach or a GM about a player that they might be interested in, that player has to be free and clear and disconnected from any team, or they can't answer the question. And if they do, they potentially get themselves in trouble.
Well, if there's any team that should not be answering a question that could potentially lead to a tampering violation, I think we know it's the Miami freaking Dolphins, right? So good job by Mike McDaniel. It was kind of a Norm Macdonald long wind up for the joke there. I appreciate it.
Now the light was on. The light was on.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, look,
it's the great moth story. You didn't get that one. There's a great, long, convoluted.
Now that you say it,
it's Conan
O'Brien,
look it up.
right? Yeah.
That great, long, convoluted moth thing about going, well, why'd you come in here? Well, the light was on. All right, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you for interrupting me when I was going to make a point.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah.
It wasn't a good one. That's why I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. You didn't earlier when I said funny story. And then you waited until after to say that wasn't very funny. Regardless, I think that when you're looking at the Miami Dolphins and a Dalvin Cook and potentially adding a veteran running back, everybody I think could use somebody like a Dalvin Cook, but it has to make sense contractually. And also, and Mike McDaniel kind of said this, they've got a pretty good stable of running backs already. Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, Myles Gaskin, Ahmed, the kid from Texas A&M they just drafted. Shout out to Shereen Williams. So, it's not like they're really lacking at that position. And when you look at that offense, it's another place where it's going to run through the receivers, right? You have a Tyreek Hill, you have a Jalen Waddle. that's where a lot of the attention is going to go offensively. And even though Mike McDaniel is a former run game coordinator, he has talked about needing to run the ball more. I don't know if Dalvin Cook is really the difference maker that you would really need for that team to take it over the top. I think they might have everything they need already.
There's been plenty of speculation about the Bills. My understanding is he's not interested in going to his brother's team. Not that he doesn't want to play with his brother James, but this is the year James takes over.
Right.
He's being respectful of the fact that that's James' team. Now, look, the Dolphins, the favorites at plus 100. The Jets at plus 250 are intriguing me because I'd previously heard maybe the Jets could be the team to watch because of Breece Hall, the torn ACL. They've been saying he's fine. We expect him to be ready week 1. That may all be part of the grift as they wait for the opportunity to go get him. Don't be stunned if the Jets make a run at Dalvin Cook. The Broncos are a team to watch. They've been quietly lurking on Dalvin Cook. Sean Payton wants to have as many running backs as possible. They don't know about Javonte Williams, another guy coming back from a torn ACL. They added Samaje Perine. He's going to get a bulk of the work. But what does Sean Payton like to do? Even when he had Reggie Bush, second overall pick, his first year in New Orleans, what did he do? He plugged him into Deuce McAllister, Pierre Thomas, revolving door. And so, I mean, Cook would have to realize if I go to Denver, maybe my career gets extended because I don't get used the way I did in Minnesota. I'm just part of this. It's me, then it's Perine, then it's Williams rotation. But the Broncos have been interested in Cook. And my understanding is and I haven't found out which team it is, but there's apparently some team that the Vikings really wouldn't want him to go to that he may end up going to. And if it's in the division, like, I don't know, is it the Lions with the Chris Spielman, Rick Spielman connection? But they just added Jahmyr Gibbs and they signed David Montgomery in free agency. That would make no sense to me. The Packers have Aaron Jones and the Quadzilla. Why am I blanking on Quadzilla's name? A.J. Dillon. Thank you very much. A.J. Dillon, I just said it. And the Bears, maybe the Bears, but they added Deontay Foreman, one of my favorite underrated running backs in the NFL. So I don't know who the Vikings are nervous he's going to end up with. But that's another reason why you try to trade him. You redirect him away from somebody where you would have to deal with Dalvin Cook as a member of the opposition.
Well, also what you said about the Broncos. I mean, you think about anytime Sean Payton is the head coach, you went all the way back to Reggie Bush. I'll just go back a few years where it was Ingram and Alvin Kamara. And I mean, that was one of the better 1-2 punches that we had in the National Football League at that time. And I think if you're Dalvin Cook, yeah, you would be intrigued by going to a Sean Payton offense and potentially being used like an Alvin Kamara, where it's not just where you're slippery in the run game, but you also are kind of integral in the pass game as well. And I think, from what we saw of Javonte Williams last year before the injury, he's another one of those guys that can really do things at a high level. So, I mean, and they have Perine, as you mentioned, who's a guy that, emerged last year when Joe Mixon got hurt. He made a lot of plays, scored a lot of touchdowns for them. So in Cincinnati Bengals. So I think that could be a decent opportunity for a guy like Dalvin Cook. But there's another team on that list that I thought was pretty intriguing of the odds where he could go, the Dallas Cowboys. Right. I mean, they could use some depth at running back now that Ezekiel Elliott's not there. Yeah, I know they drafted Deuce Vaughn, but at the same time, if you add a guy like a Dalvin Cook to a Tony Pollard-led backfield, like that's a really, really formidable thing that you've got there. So I would like to see him maybe go to the Cowboys. I think that would be fun and interesting.
The Deuce Vaughn angle is intriguing to me because he is not going to be a between the tackles runner unless he's going to run through guys' legs. He is not going to be that type of a player for the Cowboys. Man. He's just not. We showed the video a few weeks ago of Micah Parsons, Deuce Vaughn, and somebody else, a receiver, doing drills. And it looked like two guys and someone's kid. That's how small Deuce Vaughn is. And I know you can be an effective running back and not be very tall. My point is they need somebody between the tackles. And I'd take Dalvin Cook right now over Ezekiel Elliott. I know Jerry Jones hasn't closed the door on an Ezekiel Elliott return, but I think the real message here is Dalvin Cook's available, and maybe that's the team since they blew the doors off the Vikings last year. in the worst home loss since they lost to the Cardinals in the early 60s, man. You're talking about a clown from the 60s, man. You don't get that reference. That was a flop. No, that was the game my son went to. First Vikings home game ever. Flew up there right after the Bills game, and they got destroyed by the Dallas Cowboys. So maybe that's the team that the Vikings really don't want him to land with. But it would make sense. If you're leaving a light on for Ezekiel Elliott and now Dalvin Cook's on the front porch, you turn the light off for Zeke very quickly, and you welcome in Dalvin Cook if you're the Dallas Cowboys. And that's a place where I think he could be a real difference maker. He could be a difference maker anywhere. But you got Pollard coming off with a broken ankle. You got Deuce Vaughn, who's more of a, in space, outside the tackles option. You want somebody you're going to pound in the middle of the line and maybe he's going to bust through and take off. Dalvin Cook's your man. Dalvin Cook's the one. Of all the guys out there right now, Dalvin Cook's the one I would want if I was the Dallas Cowboys. So I think you may be onto something there. So Cowboys and Jets are a couple of ones to just kind of watch. And, boy, wouldn't it be something if the Jets find a way to add Dalvin Cook with Aaron Rodgers and with Garrett Wilson and with Alan Lazard and with everything else they have going on there, that would give them a little bump up as they try to fight through a tough schedule and get to the postseason.
Yeah, choo-choo, baby. That's the hype train coming for the Jets. Ooh-wee. Yeah, if they had Dalvin Cook, you already have Aaron Rodgers. The hype train is already there, but, it would only add to it if you add somebody like a Dalvin Cook, who we know can be an effective running back.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.